Welcome to We Interrupt This Broadcast, your monthly roundup of everything happening in the Australian screen industry. I'm Julie Eckersley.
And I'm Kirsty Stark, and we're here to bring the industry together and keep you up to date. Make sure to subscribe and follow us at We Interrupt Podcast to be part of the conversation on social media. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Kirsty.
Let's get everyone up to date on what's happening in the Australian screen industry this month.
Yes, it's episode 1 of We Interrupt This Broadcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are recording this on the day after the AACTA Festival at the Gold Coast, and it's been quite a week.
It has been a week. We wanted with this podcast to really give everyone a space to come together and talk about the different things that are happening across the screen industry landscape in Australia. And I feel like AACTA Festival just did that in real life. You know, there were so many people from production, crew, digital creators, documentary, drama. It all came together in one space. And I haven't seen that happening much at live events. So it was really amazing to be part of.
It's so true. This podcast is whether you're crew, writer, producer, commissioner, this really is something that we want to have value for everyone. And I think the AACTA Festival also does that because we're celebrating so many parts of the business. We're also talking about key ideas. And it brings, I think, particularly above the line and below the line together, which you're right, a lot of the time we're sort of segmented as an industry. And it's really important now more than ever that we come together and work as one industry.
There's been so many changes happening across not just the last year, but the past decade. And now just seems like such a vital time to be holding these conversations, both, you know, small picture day to day, what's going on in terms of workforce burnout and long hours, all the way up to those big conversations around the shifting landscapes of international TV, streaming quotas. It's all happening. So I'm glad that we can start this conversation, and hopefully every month you'll come back, hear what has been happening around the country and share your ideas and join the conversation.
We really are an ecosystem industry, aren't we? Like there is no one person in this industry, no matter how brilliant, who can make a show. And so for us to be able to appreciate, listen, hear and share the issues just seems central to actually making this industry the most powerful it can be.
Absolutely. So you were at both awards ceremonies. Let's sum up some of the big winners.
Yes, I was on both of those red carpets in Spanx, I will confess. And the big winner obviously was Better Man in Film from Michael Gracie, the biopic about Robbie Williams, and then Boy Swallows Universe, total 12 awards, absolutely cleaned up in the television segment.
It did, and 9 awards to Better Man, which is also amazing. So they were the 2 clear winners on the night. But also Best Drama Series went to Heartbreak High, Best Narrative Comedy Series to Fisk. Did you have any favourites yourself?
I just love everyone coming together. I always love the industry night because it feels like it really is a night for us. It's a little more fun and playful. It's not televised, so everyone can be a little bit naughtier. And so that's always such a great night. And I really could see us just a slight move towards including digital and online more with some great winners in that area. And we saw Bridie Drake, who's a YouTuber, winning favourite digital creator.
Yeah, I loved how Bridie thanked her followers rather than anyone who was involved in the making of. Obviously, when you're a solo-driven creator as a starting point, then that's a big difference. But that is a shift we're going to see in the industry.
Absolutely. As an audience-driven industry, calling your audience followers instead of audience is really distinctive because I think what it talks about is the level of engagement that people have and that authenticity and engagement, that participatory media is a big change that's happening in our industry. Who are your favourites on the night, Kirsty? Don't pretend you don't have them. We all have favourites.
I had a couple of favourites. So I'm from Adelaide and was originally from camera department. So I loved seeing our local cinematographers, Jeff Hall and Emerson Hoskin, take out the best cinematography in a documentary category. And I also really loved Felix Cameron's acceptance speech for Best Lead Actor and the fact that he thanked all of the crew, but also catering, 3 times to catering. Just shows where his heart lies.
Catering are the heroes of the set, for sure. There is nothing like being out in the elements and coming back to get that incredible meal. So love catering.
What about any gossip or big conversations that you saw happening across the festival?
I think the conversations that I were having were talking a lot about the amount of US productions that are shooting here at the moment. Also a general concern at the decreasing amount of Australian film and television shooting and the quotas tied up with that. And then a real curiosity, people thinking, how are we going to navigate this digital space? What are the changes and how will they impact me? What about you? What juicy gossip did you hear?
I spent a lot of time at the conference sessions, so really absorbing knowledge from some of our guest creators from across the industry. The key thread for me was really about creative entrepreneurship. So you obviously ran a session on creative entrepreneurship, but going to all of the different sessions, it was so much about how can you create your own momentum? How can you build your own career? What do you need to do to treat yourself as a business to move your career forward? And there were just so many elements of that across decades. So people who started in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and new creators today, all of them had that same approach to building careers, but just doing it with different technology or different opportunities. We've seen recently people coming through YouTube and coming through TikTok. Do you have a sense of what the next opportunity is going to be for new creators coming in today?
I think that's such a great question. Look, it's changing so quickly. I think, obviously we're really all worried about AI and there are some real issues around it, but it is generating opportunities for people. I saw the other day that the first entire feature film that's AI generated will be released in October. That's the plan. That was a film that they couldn't get up at $10 million. They decided to use the AI technology and they've generated that film at $500,000. I think that's US dollars. So that's really how we navigate that, what that opens for us. I think podcasting going sideways, how you build audiences, how you build yourself within that, how you really define yourself using the social media platforms and define your value is an opportunity that's emerging for people. And we've always been entrepreneurs. There's not a single person in this industry who's not entrepreneurial. So it's just about using the new platforms we've got and the new technologies to keep building that entrepreneurial spirit individually and as an industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the best quotes I heard about AI, because there were so many conversations during the week about it, was from Colin Gibson, who was one of the winners of Best Production Design for Furiosa. And his quote was, AI is nothing more than a data bank. What it doesn't have in it is what you're about to invent. And I just love that because that creativity is what has always held the film industry together. So using tools to our advantage is going to be key, I think.
That is the best and most empowering way to see it, that it's another tool in our toolkit as creatives.
The other big event that I want to mention alongside the AACTA Festival is the Screenwell and ABC Mental Health Leadership Summit, which was hosted last month. A huge event where they brought together a lot of leaders from different organisations across the screen industry to talk about the state of mental health in the industry and what can be done about it. They also used that as an opportunity to release the results of a survey that Screenwell and Griffith University have been doing. And it was pretty terrible, to be honest. They had over 1,300 respondents and their take on the working conditions in the industry was, really bad.
Let's pull out a few of the key takeaways from that for everyone.
Yeah, so 36% of respondents have seriously contemplated leaving the industry in the recent past, and 1 in 4 are planning to leave within the next 6 months. So at a time when we're talking about skills retention, having raw data like that is pretty damning, I would say.
I know I've had a lot of those conversations offline, and also with the changing landscape, a lot of people just wondering where their place is in the new media landscape.
They actually were able to compare the level of burnout in the screen industry, and it's on par with the healthcare industry, which I think is another thing, having just gone through COVID and seeing what healthcare has gone through, that we're on a similar level to them. And people talking about impossible deadlines, 57% of people feeling completely drained at the end of each workday, and 48% having faced bullying in the past year.
One of the things that I think it's really important as well, and one of the reasons that we're wanting to do this podcast, is because there are stresses at all different pressure points. A producer has certain stresses, crew have certain pressures, writers have certain pressures, and for us to understand that everyone has that within their own role and no one is exempt from that. Particularly, we've both been out on set a lot with crew and just seeing how much they face the actual elements day after day. And it's significant. Sometimes I think crews go from the elements to the elements. When you're a producer or a writer, you have those different times in development, but crews don't get that change of pace. It's pretty intense.
No, and I think you're right. It is an ecosystem, and the issues that are happening at the top level feed down to what's happening at the bottom level in terms of budgets leading to, tightened schedules, leading to cuts in departments, and all of those pressures compound, and it often is the crew who end up really facing that burnout because of everything else going on. I don't know how many people have seen it, but your Freestyle TV report goes into an opportunity for a lower budget filmmaking model alongside the high budget level. And there's some really creative ways that people have been testing already out in productions as to how to make that viable for crew.
If anyone hasn't seen the Freestyle Manifesto that Dr. Austin Hayden and I put out last November, we'll put a link in the notes. One of the things it's talking about is the need for sustainability within our industry, and that we have to be able to, absolutely, we want to do those US shows, we want to do our great prime dramas, but we also want to have a variety of lower budget, because that creates an ecosystem for us and it creates sustainability. But it's really important within that when we're shooting on lower budgets, we shoot to that lower budget, that is understood right from the writing all the way through, and that the whole creative team and the crew have buy-in to that. Because what is not in that is that crew particularly are being asked to do impossible things on no money.
I think there's so many amazing insights in that report, not just around low budget production models, but how to address this changing landscape in screen overall and the shift to digital. So I would highly recommend that people go and read that. And as Julie mentioned, we're going to put together show notes each month. So you can sign up for our mailing list at weinterruptthisbroadcast.com.au, and you'll not only get the links to episodes monthly when they're released and get to hear about everything that's going on in the Australian screen industry, but we'll share all of the links to what we're talking about so you can read in more depth and maybe even include some different elements that would have ended up on the cutting room floor.
So part of what we want to do each month is to give you a bit of a status update on the changes that are happening in the screen industry, some of the big pieces of news, and how they might affect you in your working life.
And because it's our first episode and because so much happened in 2024, I thought I might challenge you, Julie, to give us a summary of all of the big issues of 2024 in under 60 seconds.
That's impossible.
Okay, what have you got for us?
All right, let me give it a go. Start the clock. I think we've got the battle for the quotas. That is for the streamers to need to spend some of their money in Australia from the profits that they make. And Spa's doing a great job leading that, but it's going to be a big issue for this year. AI on the scene, ethical issues alongside production responsibilities. The drama report that came out late last year did show a drop in production spend, but an increase in SVOD spend, with Stan very much leading the way there. There were fewer films, and kids' TV in particular is still struggling. And we also saw a whole lot of commentary on the rise of YouTube. How's that? 60 seconds?
That was very impressive. The key issues really are that balance between local and international productions and how we find that balance for our Australian ecosystem as a whole.
I think it's going to be a big year this year to think about how we engage audiences early and more comprehensively than we've done before with this audience drain to YouTube. And if you look at some commentators like Evan Shapiro, they are claiming that 2025 will be the year of YouTube. And so that really has an impact on our industry, and we need to learn how to navigate it. One of the key things that pulls out is that the under 40 audience are watching on different platforms and in different ways. And as an industry, we need to make sure that we are in the places that audience are, and we're also empowering that generation to tell their stories in the ways that they want to tell them.
I think one of the big things we've seen this year is just promotional campaigns across film and TV, and those who are really utilising TikTok and influencers and partnerships with brands are the ones who are breaking through and getting those big box office numbers.
We are an audience-facing art form, and if we want to grow our industry, essential to that is that we grow our audience.
Yeah, there's no other way to say it. So that's 2024, and we're already starting to see some big news for our local industry in 2025. And what are some of the headlines?
So in 2025, some changes in at the ABC. Kim Williams is the new chair, and he's made it really clear that the ABC is going to be looking to engage younger audiences and go to the platforms that they're on. So it doesn't sound like these are YA, more sort of 16 to 39. And I believe that ABC is already commissioning in that space. We've also got the sale of Foxtel to DAZN, global sports streaming service, and we just, I guess, need to see how that will impact local production, if it will at all. Right now, Foxtel are continuing to produce local sports and entertainment content, and Patrick Delaney's continuing to head the company. And we also saw the really significant move of Amanda Lang, who was at Foxtel, and is now gone to the broadcast division in Nine. So they're talking a lot about restructuring, saying publicly that they're accelerating their strategic transformation and minimising duplication of roles. What that means for the industry, we'll just wait and see. But Amanda is really impressive and really exciting, so watch that space.
So yeah, some personnel changes. And they're the things that as a crew member, you don't necessarily see influencing what's going on in your day-to-day life of production, but they're shifts that can have a massive impact. So I think it's really great that we're able to share those and help people stay across them.
Yeah, and off the back of last year, we also saw that Screen Australia, who obviously make up a key part of most of our finance plans, are currently in a position where they're only able to finance 30% of the shows that come in from Australia. So, what is the roll-on effect for all of us working in the industry of that question? And again, great leadership in there, a lot of questions being asked. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out this year and if we see any changes in at Screen Oz in terms of how they support the industry.
Yeah. And how do you see that will play out in terms of types of content that are being commissioned and potential budgets? What do you think?
Well, I mean, Screen Oz have a certain amount of money, and unless that gets increased, which wouldn't that be lovely? We'd all love that. But I imagine, not having insider knowledge, but I imagine that the work they're doing there is they're looking at how they can more effectively move that money in different places. So, for example, last year they put on pause the enterprise program. So that frees up some money. So whether they're going to put that into development, whether they're going to put that into new voices, production, that will be one of the changes that we'll see. And also we're seeing a real growth in gaming and the online space and that new generation coming forward with new ways of storytelling. So again, this is purely speculative, but I imagine that one of the things they're looking at is making sure that they're supporting those parts of our Australian screen industry because they are very much part of the ecosystem along with film and television.
So the enterprise program was really looking at investing into screen businesses to make them bigger and more sustainable across the industry. So a lot of fantastic companies have been the recipient of that program over the past years. And yeah, now I think it's about how they divide that money into individual creators or producers or productions and what the balance is between developing new talent or cultural voices against what the box office is going to see at the end of the day or what the TV broadcast audience numbers are going to be.
And I know they're doing a lot of work on looking at data and getting data to producers. We can tell a lot from what audiences are doing through getting those numbers. And with everything being digital, we really can get hard numbers. So how can we get a hold of that? And how can we use that to grow our audiences, to take our content from good to great and really just keep expanding our industry?
And Deirdre Brennan, the new CEO, is really driving that. She has a huge interest in data and what it means for the industry, which is exciting and important.
Absolutely. Let's get a quick highlight on some of the things that are shooting around the country. Kirsty.
Yeah, I think it's always good to keep an eye on what the production landscape looks like. And obviously, we're never going to be able to capture every production that's shooting at once, but I think it's interesting to see what's going on. As you alluded to as part of the AACTA Festival conversations, there's a huge amount of international production happening at the moment. So Queensland has Anaconda with Paul Rudd and Jack Black, Bear Country with Russell Crowe. They're doing Spa Weekend with Isla Fisher, Voltron with Henry Cavill, and Monarch, which is just wrapping up and finalising their Thailand shoot off the back of the Gold Coast shoot here recently. And then over in New South Wales, there's Playing Gracie Darling, Apex, Season 2 of The Artful Dodger. WA has Ghosts, which is a BBC Studios production happening over there. So a lot of international production happening.
And exciting to see the studios opening over in WA as well.
Yes, I think infrastructure is making a big change in what's shooting where across the country.
Absolutely. At the ACTAs, I was speaking to the team that are heading up the Cairns studios as well, and they've got some really exciting things headed their way. So yeah, these new opportunities opening up in different spaces, which is really great for the industry.
And interesting to see what that means in terms of crew shifting across the country and working in different spaces, and also skills development for crew in those local areas as well. So Julie, a lot of Aussie content has been released in the past couple of months. What have you been watching and what are you excited about coming up?
I've just started Apple Cider Vinegar, which I'm absolutely loving. I'm only fantastic. Such great storytelling. It's so confident and fast and engaging. And I really love the way that they create a complex empathy for the characters. Haven't watched it yet, but looking forward to Eat the Invaders. And shame on me, I have not yet seen Better Man, but that looks like an extraordinary piece of work. That is definitely on my list. How about you?
I'm one app into Apple Cider Vinegar as well. I went to their session about the making of the show at the AACTA Festival, and Samantha Strauss, I hadn't seen much of her before, but she is incredible. There's a lot of conversation around development and how important it is. She actually rewrote episode 2 18 times across a year just to get it right, which I think, development speaks so much to then what happens in production. And they also spoke about, energy and getting things right on set. And she was working with director Jeffrey Walker, and they would work together to rewrite things that just weren't quite sounding right off the page as they went into each shoot. Yeah, really interesting to hear about their production process and all of the nuance that went into getting it right.
I love that emphasis on development. It really is something that we can actually do, like it is within our capabilities to deepen and lengthen the development process. And that is no surprise to me that she did that. When you hear people like Shonda Rhimes talking about how rigorously they write and rewrite scripts, it just really is a reminder that one element to the craft that we do is time. Time and craft rigor really makes a difference to the quality of the stories that we tell.
I have been watching Eat the Invaders and really enjoying it. It's this amazing mix of kind of historical content with art and beautiful food presentation and then just fun. So Tony Armstrong is really getting into why people should eat carp and cats and rabbits, and really worth watching. A lot of fun.
It's super confronting as my little cat sits beside me purring.
Yes. Cane toad is another one. Would you ever eat cane toad?
Not if I knew it was. I grew up in Queensland, so I've seen those big ugly things hopping around.
Yeah.
I was talking to the team at Princess Pictures Actors as well, and their film Together sold to Neon across the globe, which is awesome.
Yeah, it got such an amazing response at Sundance. They had the midnight screening and it's got 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment from over 28 reviews. So that feels like it's going to be another big Aussie international success when it's released in cinemas.
Love that.
Also at Sundance, 2 other Australian productions. So we had Jimpa, which is Sophie Hyde's feature film, and also the documentary Never Get Busted.
This is one of my ongoing pet things about the Australian industry. Again, one of the reasons that we're here having this conversation, but we are having these incredible successes. Obviously we've got the pin-up child of Bluey that was the most popular show in the US last year. And yet it feels like our brand is not yet really engaging all of these things. When we talk about this kind of success, it's really amazing. And I feel like we can do a much better job within the industry of understanding how we're batting above our weight, but also promoting ourselves as an Australian industry across the globe. I'd love us to find opportunities to do that better.
And just create, almost have our own marketing firm for Australian screen. Would be incredible if we could ever make that happen.
I mean, when you look at countries like Korea, that is exactly what they do. They have a marketing presence in 3 continents across the globe. And I think in this crowded landscape where people are getting so much information, we can't just assume that people will find out about it. We actually do need to build our brand together. Ozfilm do such a great job of promoting us as a production environment. But similarly, if we had an organisation that was really promoting the quality, the IP, the creatives that we have in this country, I think that would be really powerful for our industry.
Yeah. So not just focusing on the inbound marketing, but the outbound marketing as well.
Absolutely.
So just to run through a few other projects that are out in the world, it's worth checking out Better Man, as we said. Black Snow is on Stan at the moment. Series 3 of The Newsreader has just been released. I think it's the last one, so wrapping up that beautiful story world. Magic Beach, Buried, which won the online category, is obviously online and available to watch. And there's also a new AFL series about young teenagers trying to get into the AFL, both men and women. That's called Young Bloods, and that was created and released primarily on TikTok, which is really exciting as well.
Is that a factual series?
It is, yeah. It follows teenagers trying to stand out and build their career in the AFL pathway.
All right, so that is episode 1 of We Interrupt This Broadcast. We did it.
Yes, what a massive episode. We had a lot to cover, especially being our first one and with so much happening at AACTA Festival.
We hope this has been valuable. Please give us your feedback. We want to know what you want to hear about and what information we can bring to you each month.
Yeah, what are the conversations we should be having on the podcast? This is a bit of an experiment for us, so we're planning to keep creating monthly episodes for as long as people keep listening. And if you enjoyed this first episode, we'd love you to spread the word to other people in the industry, whether it's crew on your productions, the commissioning editor down the hall from you. Let people know, and don't forget to hit subscribe or sign up for our mailing list, which you can do at weinterruptthisbroadcast.com.au.
Next month, we're going to look at AIDC, which is the International Documentary Conference happening in Melbourne, and also the Oscars.
Yes, lots of Australian nominees at the Oscars this year, so it's going to be great to follow that and see who comes out with a golden statue.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Yes, back to your regular programming.
We Interrupt This Broadcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and we acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and first storytellers of these regions. Always was, always will be. We Interrupt This Broadcast is hosted by Julie Eckersley and Kirsty Stark and produced and edited by Leonie Marsh.